The day my husband died, I was still crying when my daughter-in-law knocked on my door with an ultimatum. Either you leave us the house or we'll send you to a nursing home. I replied, okay, but first I'm going to show my son the DNA test I found at your house. Glad to have you here. Follow my story to the end and comment from which city you're watching. That way, I can see how far my story has come. I never thought the most painful day of my life would become the day that changed everything forever. My name is Alicia. I'm 62 years old, and until 3 days ago I was a happy wife after 38 years of marriage. Harold, my husband, died in my arms after a long battle with lung cancer. I could still feel the weight of his last words in my heart. Take care, my love. Don't let anyone take away what we've built together. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. I thought it was the delirium of a dying man. I wish I had paid more attention. The funeral was a strange experience. Fernanda, my daughter-in-law, acted as if she were the main widow. She stood in the front row, receiving condolences as if it were her loss, and even chose the flowers for the coffin. I sat there feeling like a guest at my own husband's funeral. Michael, my 35-year-old son, didn't even look at me during the ceremony. He only had eyes for Fernanda and for making sure she was okay. I should have realized something was seriously wrong when Fernanda approached me at the end of the funeral. She had that cold smile that always made me nervous, as if she knew something I didn't. Alicia, she said, taking my hand with a firmness I didn't expect. We need to talk soon. There are important things to discuss about the future. I didn't think much of it. I was too devastated by Harold's death to process what was really happening. I just wanted to get home, to the house Harold and I bought 25 years ago, where we raised Michael, where all our memories lived. I needed to be surrounded by his things, by his scent that still clung to the clothes in the closet. But the next day, at exactly 8 a.m., Fernanda knocked on my door. It wasn't a courtesy visit to check on the widow. It was something entirely different. Good morning, Alicia, she said as she walked in without waiting for an invitation. She was carrying a folder and that same cold smile from the day before. I hope you slept well, because we have serious matters to resolve. I sat on the couch where Harold and I had spent so many nights watching television and looked at her, confused. Matters, Fernanda? We just buried Harold yesterday. It can't wait. She sat opposite me and opened the folder. Michael and I have been discussing your situation and have come to a decision. My situation, as if I were a problem to be solved. Look, Alicia, she continued. You're 62. This house is too big for you alone. The maintenance, the expenses, the loneliness, it isn't healthy for a woman your age. A knot formed in my stomach. What are you talking about? Fernanda sighed, as if speaking to a stubborn child. We found a very nice nursing home, very comfortable, a place where you'll be able to make friends, have activities, 24-hour medical care. It's perfect for you. The words hit like a slap. A nursing home is the best option for everyone, she said, pulling out papers. Michael and I need a bigger place for our family. This house has 4 bedrooms, a big yard, it's in a good neighborhood, it's perfect for us. I stared, unable to process what I was hearing. Are you asking me to leave my house? I'm not asking you anything, Alicia. I'm giving you 2 options. Either you sign the transfer of the house voluntarily and we'll help you settle into a nice place where you'll be well taken care of, or we'll have to look for other legal alternatives. Legal alternatives? My voice was a whisper. Michael is your only heir. He has rights to this property, especially considering you can't properly maintain it. A judge could determine you're unfit to live on your own. I felt the ground give way beneath me. And Michael is okay with this? Fernanda smiled. Why don't you ask him yourself? As if on cue, Michael came in through the back door. My son, the boy I had carried in my arms, comforted during nightmares, helped with homework, looked at me with a coldness I'd never seen. Hi, Mom, he said, but he didn't come over to hug me. Michael, I whispered. Is what Fernanda says true? He sat beside his wife and took her hand. Mom, you know we love you, but we have to be practical. This house is too much for you. And we need more space. But this is my house, I said, feeling tears gather. I lived here with your father for 25 years. We raised you here. All our memories are here. You take the memories with you, Mom, Michael said. His voice sounded rehearsed, as if he'd practiced the line. And you'll be able to visit us, whenever you want, Fernanda chimed in. Besides, Alicia, at the nursing home you'll have lots of activities, occupational therapy, exercise classes, bingo on Fridays. It'll be like a permanent vacation. I stared at these two people who had arrived the day after my husband's funeral to dismantle my life. Michael avoided my eyes. Fernanda watched me like a vulture. What if I say no? I asked. Then we'll have to do this legally, Fernanda replied immediately. Michael can show he needs this house for his family and that you don't have the resources to maintain it. It'll take longer, be more expensive, and more painful for everyone. Michael finally met my gaze. We don't want this to be difficult, Mom. We just want the best for you. Something in me snapped. It wasn't just the pain of losing my house, it was realizing my own son, the person I'd sacrificed everything for, saw me as an obstacle to be removed. I need time to think, I managed, of course, Fernanda said, closing the folder. But not for long. We've already put a deposit on the nursing home, and the waiting list is long. After they left, I sat in my living room, surrounded by the deepest silence I'd ever known. Not even when Harold was in the hospital had I felt so completely alone. That's when I remembered something. Last week, when I'd taken Michael some soup because he'd been sick, I'd seen an envelope on his desk, an envelope with a medical lab's logo. I hadn't thought much of it then, but now I had the feeling that envelope could change everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how we'd gotten here, when my son stopped seeing me as his mother and started seeing me as a burden. Memories came in waves, each more painful than the last. I remembered when Michael was 8 and broke his arm falling off his bike. Harold was on a business trip. I spent 3 sleepless days at the hospital, making sure he was okay. Michael cried at night, and I sat by his side singing the lullabies he loved when he was little. Mom, he told me that night, his arm in a cast, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you just like you take care of me. Those words now felt like knives. I remembered Michael's 16th birthday. Harold and I had saved for months to buy him a car, not fancy, just used. Michael was so happy he cried. He hugged me so tightly I thought he'd break my ribs. You're the best mom in the world, he whispered. I don't know what I'd do without you. Then college. Michael wanted engineering at an expensive private university. Harold and I took out a second mortgage to pay his tuition. I worked double shifts for 4 years. I never complained. When he graduated, he dedicated his degree to me. My mom sacrificed everything so I could be here today. Where was that Michael, the one who hugged me when he had nightmares, who brought me flowers from the garden when I was sad, who promised he would always take care of me? Then Fernanda arrived. He met her at 28 at a work conference. She was a receptionist at an insurance company, 5 years younger, blonde, thin, with a smile that didn't seem entirely genuine. From the first moment, something bothered me, though I couldn't place it. At first, Fernanda was lovely. "Senora Alicia," she said, "you raised the most wonderful man. I hope I can be half the mother you were." She brought little gifts, asked for recipes, for advice about Michael. I thought I'd found the daughter-in-law I'd dreamed of. Gradually, things changed. Small things, at first. Michael started canceling Sunday dinners because Fernanda had plans. When I called, he sounded busy, distracted. "Mom, I'm with Fernanda. Can I call you later?" Then he never did, then the subtle digs. During a family dinner, Fernanda remarked, "It's sweet how Alicia still cooks for Michael, though it's time she learned to let go of her baby, don't you think, honey?" Michael laughed. "She's right, Mom. I'm not a kid anymore." Each comment was a tiny stab. The wedding was the turning point. Fernanda planned everything without me. I, the groom's mother, learned details from invitations in the mail. "I thought you wanted an intimate wedding," I told Michael. "We do, Mom, just close family and friends." But on the day, close family didn't include me. Fernanda had dozens of relatives and friends. I had a back corner table with my 2 sisters and some neighbors. Michael barely spoke to me at the reception. After the wedding, visits dwindled. There was always an excuse. Fernanda was sick, Michael had extra work, plans with her friends. When Harold got sick 2 years ago, I hoped Michael would be there. For the first few months, yes. As Harold's condition worsened, the visits grew sporadic. "Mom," he said after a difficult appointment, "Fernanda says all this stress isn't good for me, that I need some emotional distance to help better." Emotional distance, from his dying father. Harold and I faced the hardest years of our lives mostly alone. I cared for him day and night, took him to chemo, comforted him through pain, tried to hold hope when he'd lost his. Michael came once a week, sometimes less. Fernanda almost never came. In Harold's last months, when he couldn't get out of bed, when he could barely eat, when the end was near, Michael began asking strange questions. "Mom, do you have all the house papers in order? Did Dad leave a will? Do you know what the property is worth?" I thought it was practical concern. Now I realized he'd been planning this moment. The night before Harold died, he tried to tell me something important. He was very weak but held my hand with what little strength he had. "Alicia," he whispered, "be careful with," he couldn't finish. He fell asleep, and by morning he was gone. Now, sitting up at 3 a.m., I wondered what he tried to say. Be careful with what? With whom? I went to Harold's desk, opened the drawer with important papers, and began sorting: birth certificates, deeds, insurance policies. Then I saw it, a folded note tucked into our will, written in Harold's shaky hand: "Alicia. I suspect Fernanda. The boy doesn't look like Michael. Investigate after my death. I love you." My heart stopped. The boy doesn't look like Michael. He meant Danny, my 4-year-old grandson. I'd always thought he looked more like Fernanda, but Harold had noticed something else. And I remembered that envelope on Michael's desk. For the first time since Fernanda's visit, I felt something besides pain and confusion. I felt determination. If they were going to take everything from me, if they were going to treat me like a nuisance, I was at least going to uncover the truth. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. It wasn't just about saving my house or my dignity, it was about the truth. I dressed carefully, as if for an important interview. In a way, it was. I put on the navy blue dress Harold always said made me look elegant and light makeup. I wanted to look like the understanding mother-in-law who had decided to accept her fate. I called Michael around 10 a.m. "Hi, honey," I said, sounding calm and resigned. "I've been thinking about what we talked about yesterday." "Yes, Mom." I could hear the hope in his voice. as if I'd finally come to my senses. I think maybe you're right. This house really is too big for just me. I'm not handling being alone very well. There was a pause. I heard Fernanda's voice in the background, prompting him. That's great, Mom. We knew you'd understand. I was wondering if I could stop by your house this afternoon. I'd like to bring some important papers to Fernanda, things about Dad's life insurance. House documents, things you'll need when I leave. Of course, Mom. Fernanda will be here all afternoon. I have a meeting until 5, but she can help with everything. Perfect. I needed Fernanda alone. Thanks, honey. I'll see you around 2. I arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. The house was nice, newer, comfortable. Harold and I had helped with the down payment 3 years ago. Now I wondered if it had all been part of a larger plan. Fernanda opened with a relieved smile. Alicia, it's so good of you to stop by. Come in. The house was impeccably tidy. Fernanda was obsessive about cleaning. Danny was at school, so we were alone. Coffee? She asked, heading to the kitchen. Yes. Thank you. While she made coffee, I scanned the living room. Family photos were everywhere, but something was off. In recent photos, Danny stood mostly with Fernanda, rarely with Michael. And when he was with Michael, their body language lacked the easy bond of father and son. Here you go, Fernanda said, returning with 2 cups. She sat across from me with that controlled smile. So, did you bring the papers? Yes, I said, pulling a folder from my bag. But first, I need to use the bathroom. Of course. You know where it is? Instead of the guest bath, I went upstairs to the master bath. My heart hammered so loudly I feared she'd hear it. Passing the master bedroom, I noticed Michael's study door was open. I peeked in. His desk was covered in papers, and there, in the corner, was exactly what I was looking for. Several envelopes from the medical lab I'd seen last week. With shaky hands, I picked up an open envelope. Inside were documents. One caught my eye. A paternity test. Probability of paternity between Michael Rodriguez and Daniel Rodriguez. 0%. 0%. My grandson was not my son's child. My legs weakened. I gripped the desk to keep from falling. Everything started to make sense. The fewer visits in recent years, Fernanda's constant excuses, her control since the funeral. There were more documents. I searched the other envelopes. Another paternity test, more recent, dated only 2 weeks ago, and different. Probability of paternity between Carlos Mendoza and Daniel Rodriguez. 99.97%. Carlos Mendoza. I didn't recognize the name, but he was clearly Danny's biological father. Alicia, are you okay? Fernanda called from downstairs. Yes, I called back, trying to sound normal. I'll be right down. I quickly photographed the documents with my phone, put them back as I'd found them, and left the study. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the phone. At the bottom of the stairs, Fernanda watched me with an unreadable expression. You took a while, she said. Excuse me. At my age, everything takes longer, I replied lightly. We returned to the living room, but I could no longer keep up the facade. My mind raced. Michael knew, or Fernanda had been cheating all along. Either way, the truth was here in my phone. So, Fernanda said, sipping her coffee, when do you think you'll be able to move into the nursing home? The question hit like a slap. Here I was, discovering my daughter-in-law had been living a lie, and she was still talking about getting rid of me like garbage. Well, I said evenly, I suppose it depends on when the paperwork is ready. Oh, it's almost ready, she said cheerfully. I spoke to the administrator this morning. They can take you next Monday. Next Monday? In 5 days? I asked. It's better this way, Alicia. The sooner you move, the sooner you can adjust to your new life. My new life in a nursing home, while she lived in my house with my son, knowing the grandson I adored wasn't really my grandson. But then I thought of Danny, that sweet 4-year-old who called me grandma with such love. It didn't matter whose blood he had. I'd loved him since the day he was born. He was innocent, Fernanda, I said carefully. Have you ever thought about telling Michael the truth? She tensed, but her smile didn't. The truth about what? About Danny. The smile faded. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. In her eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before, fear. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice had changed. I think you do. Fernanda stood abruptly. I think you should go, Alicia. You're more confused than we thought. The stress of losing Harold is affecting you. I stood, too, but didn't move toward the door. Do you know how many years I've been a mother, Fernanda? What? 35. And in 35 years, you learn to recognize when someone is lying. The mask finally fell. The sweet, concerned Fernanda vanished. In her place stood a cold, calculating woman. What do you want? She asked flatly. I want the truth. And what will you do with it, Alicia? Do you think Michael will believe you? Do you think he'll choose his crazy, bitter mother over his wife? I'm not crazy. And I'm not bitter, I said. I'm tired of being treated like I'm stupid. She leaned in, voice low and hard. Listen carefully. You're going to that nursing home on Monday. You're going to sign those papers. And you're going to keep your mouth shut, because if you don't, I'll make sure you never see that child again. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you very wise advice. I headed for the door, then turned back. You know what, Fernanda? Harold always told me I was stronger than I thought. I think it's time you found out he was right. I left knowing 2 things. Fernanda had completely underestimated me, and Monday would not be the day I moved into a nursing home. It would be the day everything changed. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I had to act as if nothing had changed, as if I didn't know the secret that could destroy Fernanda's world. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw those papers. Every time I thought about Danny, my heart broke a little more. Friday morning, Michael came to visit. It was strange seeing him in the house where he grew up, behaving like a stranger. How are you, Mom? He asked, not really expecting an answer. Fernanda wanted me to help you pack some things. How thoughtful of her, I said neutrally. Michael scanned the living room, as if already calculating which furniture he wanted to keep. You know, Mom, I think this move will be good for you. The nursing home has lots of activities. You'll make new friends. Michael, I said softly, sitting in my favorite chair. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? He blinked. He sat, frowning. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Are you happy with your life, with your marriage? For a moment, I saw the Michael I remembered, the boy who told me all his secrets. Then the mask returned. Of course I'm happy. I have a wonderful wife, a beautiful son, a good job. And a mother who's getting in the way. Mom, don't say that, he added quickly. You're not in the way. You just need care, and we can't give it adequately. Can't, or won't. He stood, uncomfortable. I'll start in the attic. Fernanda said there are boxes you might want to sort. I watched him go upstairs, this 35-year-old man who had once been my little boy. How had it come to this? How had he let someone manipulate him so much? That afternoon, after Michael left, I sat at Harold's desk and began to plan. I couldn't just throw documents at him without context. I needed the truth to come out in a way Michael could process. I also needed to protect myself. If Fernanda could threaten me like that, what else could she do when cornered? I called my sister, Margaret, who lived in another state. Alicia, she said, worried, how are you handling the nursing home thing? Margaret, I need you to know something. If anything happens to me in the next few days, if I have an accident, if I suddenly get sick, it won't be a coincidence. What are you talking about? I told her everything, the documents, Fernanda's threats, the house. Margaret was silent for several minutes. My God, Alicia, are you sure? I have photos of the documents. I'm emailing them to you. What are you going to do? I'm going to give Michael a chance to know the truth, and then let him decide what kind of man he wants to be. Saturday night, Fernanda called. Alicia, I just wanted to confirm everything's ready for Monday. The transport arrives at 9 a.m., everything is ready, I lied, perfect. And Alicia, I hope you've reflected on our conversation. Oh, I've reflected a lot. Okay. I'll see you Monday to say goodbye. After hanging up, I sat at the dining table where Harold and I ate breakfast for 25 years, where we helped Michael with homework, where we celebrated birthdays and Christmases. I took out my phone and wrote, Michael, I need you to come tomorrow at 8 a.m. It's important. Bring Fernanda. There's something I need to show you before I leave. His reply came quickly, of course, Mom. Are you okay? I typed back, I've never been better. Sunday morning, I rose before dawn, showered, dressed in my best, combed my hair, dabbed on perfume. If this was the day that changed everything, I wanted to look like the strong woman Harold knew me to be. I made coffee for 3 and set out the good china, the wedding gift cups Harold and I had kept for special occasions. I set the table as if for an elegant breakfast, not for the destruction of a marriage. At exactly 8 o'clock, I heard Michael's car in the driveway. I took a deep breath, whispered, help me, Harold, and opened the door. Michael and Fernanda stood there, casual clothes, expressions of forced patience, the faces you wear with a troublesome relative. Good morning, I said with the most genuine smile I'd managed in weeks. Come in. Mom, Michael said, why did you ask us to come so early? The shuttle doesn't arrive until 9 o'clock tomorrow. Because there's something important I need to share before I make my final decision. Fernanda eyed me suspiciously. Michael seemed genuinely curious. Your final decision? He asked, sit, please. Coffee? I poured coffee into the porcelain cups that would probably soon be in Fernanda's hands. Michael, I began, these past few days I've been thinking about what it means to be a mother. Fernanda shifted, clearly uncomfortable with the direction. A mother protects her children, I went on. She cares for them, guides them, and when necessary, tells them truths that are hard to hear. Mom, Michael said, is this about the nursing home? It's not about the nursing home, honey. It's about family. It's about honesty. It's about knowing who we really are, and who we're sharing our lives with. Fernanda had paled, but kept her composure. I don't understand, Michael said. I took out my phone and placed it on the table. On the screen were the photos I'd taken. Michael, I said softly, there's something you need to know about Danny. The change in the room was instant. Michael leaned forward to see the screen. Fernanda went still, as if she'd stopped breathing. What is this? Michael asked, taking the phone. I watched him read. I saw the exact moment the words sank in, his face shifting from confusion to shock to pain, and finally to something I'd never seen on him before, pure fury. 0%, he whispered, looking at Fernanda. 0% probability of paternity. Fernanda didn't respond. She stared at her hands. Fernanda, Michael said, voice rising, what does this mean? She finally looked up. I saw in her eyes that she knew it was over. Michael, Danny is not your son. Silence. The ticking kitchen clock. A car passing outside. My own heartbeat. Can I explain? She asked. Explain, Michael said, deadly calm. When I met you, Fernanda began, voice trembling, I was already pregnant. Whose? Carlos's? And who is Carlos? My ex-boyfriend, the one before you. Michael paced like a caged animal. How long were you with him? 3 years. Why didn't you stay with him if he was the father? Fernanda looked down. Because he didn't have money. He worked at a mechanic's shop, lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. You had a good job, a career, a future. The silence was devastating. I saw Michael realize his wife chose him for his wallet, not love. So you used me? He asked, voice breaking. I didn't not love you. Michael. I came to love you. When? Exactly when did you come to love me? After I bought the ring? After I paid for the wedding? After we bought the house? Michael, it wasn't like that. Tell me when, Fernanda. She couldn't answer. Because the truth was that she had used him from day one. Michael turned to the window, back to her. Does Carlos know Danny is his son? Yes. Have you been in contact with him all these years? Occasionally. What does occasionally mean? Fernanda twisted her hands. He wanted to see Danny. Sometimes I took Danny to the park and Carlos was there, by coincidence. Michael spun around. You took my son to see his biological father without telling me? Only a few times. How many, Fernanda? Once a month, maybe. For 4 years. You have to understand, I understand nothing. Michael shouted, tears in his eyes. I've been raising another man's son. Working extra to pay for his needs. Staying up late when he was sick. Teaching him to ride a bike, to play baseball. His voice broke completely. He loves you, I said softly, speaking for the first time since I'd shown the documents. They both looked at me. Danny loves you, Michael. To him, you're his dad. He doesn't know any of this. How can you be so calm? Fernanda snapped. You just destroyed our family. I didn't destroy anything, I said. You destroyed this family the day you built it on lies. You're only doing this out of revenge, because you don't want to go to the nursing home. You're right, I said, meeting her eyes. At first it was about the nursing home, about saving my house, my dignity. But now it's about something much more important. I turned to Michael. It's about saving you. Saving me from what? He asked, from a life built on lies. From a woman who sees you as a means to an end. From waking up at 50 and realizing you've lived someone else's life. Stop it, Michael, Fernanda burst out. Don't listen to her. She's manipulating you. Like you? I asked calmly. Am I the one lying about paternity? Hiding secret meetings? Trying to cut his mother out of his life? You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. You've been planning to get rid of me for a long time, poisoning my son against me. Now that Harold is dead, you saw the perfect chance to take everything. Michael looked between us, processing. There's something else, I said, taking another paper from my pocket. Another document I found. Fernanda blanched. What document? The second paternity test confirming that Carlos Mendoza is Danny's biological father. Michael took it and read. When was this done? 2 weeks ago, I answered. Why would you take another paternity test 2 weeks ago? He asked Fernanda. She didn't answer, but I knew. Because Carlos loves his son. I said, and you were trying to decide between staying with the man who supports you and going with the man you actually love. That's not true. No. I pulled out my phone again and showed another photo I'd taken from Michael's desk, an appointment slip with a divorce lawyer dated the week after Harold died. Michael looked at the document, then at his wife. You were going to divorce me. Michael, I can explain. After getting my mother's house? After getting rid of my mother? Was that your plan? Fernanda collapsed into a chair and began to cry, not tears of remorse, but of a trapped woman. Yes, she whispered. That was my plan. Silence. Michael stared at the woman he'd been married to for 4 years as if she were a stranger. Did you ever love me? He asked at last. She looked up. For a moment I thought she'd lie again. Not at first, she admitted. But later. Later I came to love you. Later, Michael repeated. No, Fernanda, it isn't complicated. You either love someone or you don't. You never loved me. You loved what I could give you. He headed to the door. I want you out of my house. Please leave. Now. Fernanda looked at me with hatred and despair. This is your fault. You destroyed everything. No, I said firmly. You did, the day you decided lies were easier than truth. After she left, Michael and I were alone. He sat on the couch with his head in his hands. How did I not see it? He murmured. I sat beside him and, for the first time in years, put my hand on his shoulder. Because you didn't want to, I said gently. Because she was very good at manipulating. And because you're a good person who wanted to believe the best of the woman you loved. Mom, he said without looking up, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry I treated you that way. I'm sorry I was willing to send you to a nursing home. I'm sorry I didn't see. I know, honey. Can you forgive me? I thought of the hurt of the past years, the nights I cried alone, the times I wondered what I'd done wrong as a mother. I thought of the boy I raised, the good man he was at heart, even when lost. I already have. I told him. And it was true. The moment I saw his world collapse, my anger melted away. The only thing left was love, the love that had never really left. 3 months later, I'm sitting in my kitchen, the same one where Harold and I shared so many breakfasts, watching Michael make scrambled eggs for Danny. It's Sunday morning, and this has become our new tradition. Sunday breakfasts together, like a real family. Those first days after the revelation were hard. Michael had to process not only Fernanda's betrayal, but also the reality that the child he'd raised for 4 years wasn't biologically his. The most beautiful thing to see was how that changed nothing between him and Danny. That boy knows me as Dad, Michael told me the week after Fernanda left. I've been there for every nightmare, every scraped knee, every important moment. I'm not abandoning him now. And he didn't. Michael fought for custody, and with all the evidence of Fernanda's lies and manipulation, it wasn't hard to get. The judge was particularly upset to learn Fernanda had taken the boy to secret meetings with his biological father without Michael's knowledge. Fernanda tried to fight at first. She called me several times, trying to convince me to speak to Michael on her behalf. Alicia, she said during one call, you have to understand, I did it for love. I loved Carlos, but I also came to love Michael. You can't love 2 men at once the way a wife should love her husband, I answered. And you don't build a marriage on lies. But Danny needs his mother. Danny needs stability and honesty, two things you never gave him. In the end, Fernanda accepted an agreement, 2 supervised weekends a month. Michael insisted on supervision after discovering she'd been filling the boy's head with lies about me. Your grandma Alicia is bad, she had told him. She wants to hurt Mommy and Daddy. It took weeks to regain Danny's full trust, but children are resilient, and they recognize genuine love. Now Danny runs to me every morning, hugs me tight, and tells me his dreams from the night before. He helps in the garden, helps with the cooking, and falls asleep on my lap while I read. Grandma, he asked a few weeks ago, why doesn't Mommy live here anymore? It was the question we'd been expecting. Michael and I agreed to be honest, age-appropriately. Because sometimes adults make decisions that hurt families, I explained. But the most important thing is that Dad and I love you very much, and we will always take care of you. And Mommy? Yes, honey. Mommy loves you. She just has to learn how to be a better mommy. Michael moved back into the house 2 weeks after Fernanda left. At first, I insisted he find his own place. I thought we'd drive each other crazy. But the truth is, this house is too big for me alone, and he and Danny needed stability. I like having my family under this roof again. The transition wasn't perfect. Michael carried a lot of guilt. There were nights I found him awake in the kitchen, sitting in the dark. I can't stop thinking about all the times I ignored you, he confessed. How I chose Fernanda over you. How I was willing to send you away. She was skilled at manipulation, I told him, sitting beside him. It took me years to see clearly, and I had more reason to be suspicious. But you're my mother, he said. I should have protected you. And now you're protecting me, I said. That's what matters. Little by little, we rebuilt our relationship. We began to talk again, really talk. He told me about doubts he'd had for years, ignored because he thought all marriages had problems. He told me how Fernanda had gradually isolated him from me and from his friends, always with reasonable-sounding excuses. Do you think Dad knew? He asked one night. I think your dad knew something wasn't right, I said. He was perceptive about people. I think he waited until he had proof. I wish he had lived to see this resolved. Oh, honey, I added, I think he sees, and I think he's proud of how you handled the truth. A month after Michael moved back, I got a call I didn't expect. It was Carlos, Danny's biological father, Mrs. Alicia. He said, nervous. I know this is complicated, but I was wondering if we could talk. We met at a cafe. He was tall, dark, with calloused hands from the shop. I want you to know, he said, I never wanted it like this. When Fernanda told me she was marrying another man, I tried to get her to tell him Danny was mine. Why didn't she? I asked. Because I didn't have money. Because I lived in a small apartment. Because she wanted a better life for the boy. He looked genuinely tormented. I've been sending money when I could. She said it was for toys or clothes. And now? What do you want? I want to know my son, but I don't want to hurt him. He loves Michael like a father. And Michael loves him like a son. I don't want to complicate that. His honesty impressed me. Have you talked to Michael? No. I thought maybe you could help arrange a meeting. That night I told Michael. What do you think? I asked. He thought for a long time. I believe Danny has the right to know the truth when he's older, he said. And I think Carlos has the right to meet him, but it has to be on Danny's terms, at his pace. You're a wise man, I told him. I learned from the best, he said. We arranged for Carlos to get to know Danny gradually, first as a family friend. When Danny is older and can understand, he'll know the whole truth. Carlos agreed completely, the first time Carlos came to the house. I watched Danny play with two men who loved him for different reasons. Michael, because he chose to be a father, Carlos, because Danny is part of him. And Danny, bless him, had enough love for both. Grandma, Danny asked that night, why does Mr. Carlos look at me the way you and Dad do? Because he loves you very much, I said. Like family. Yes, he said, satisfied. Like family. Now, 6 months after all the drama, my life is more peaceful than it's been in years. Michael and I have found a comfortable balance. He cooks, turns out he's better at it than I am. I help with Danny. We share the house and the responsibilities. Fernanda came by a month ago to collect the rest of her things. She looked different, thinner, with circles under her eyes. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of compassion. How are you? I asked. Surviving, she said. Carlos and I are trying to make it work, but it's complicated. He feels guilty about the years he lost with Danny. I feel guilty for all the damage I caused. Guilt can be useful, if it motivates better decisions, I said. Is Michael happy? I looked out the window where Michael and Danny were playing soccer in the backyard, laughing and running together. He's healing, I said. And yes, he's happy. I'm glad, she said quietly. And I think she meant it. I never wanted to hurt him. I know, I said, after she left. I sat in my favorite chair and reflected. Harold always said I was stronger than I thought. He was right. Now, as I watch Michael teach Danny how to flip an egg without breaking it, my heart is full of a happiness I haven't felt in years. My house is full of laughter again. My son is safe and loved. And I am where I belong, in my home, with my family, living the life Harold and I built together. Some stories don't end with fireworks. They end with something much simpler and more powerful, peace. This morning, Danny asked if we could plant flowers in the garden for Grandpa Harold. So he knows we still remember him, he said. As I helped him dig small holes for seeds, I thought of Harold and how proud he would be to see our family together again. Stronger than before, Grandma, Danny told me, I love you. I love you too, darling, I replied, and in that moment, sitting in the garden Harold and I planted so many years ago, surrounded by the people I love most, I knew I had made the right choices. Sometimes strength isn't about fighting, it's about knowing when to reveal the truth and letting the truth do the rest, and the truth, as always, set us